There we go. Forgot to change headsets. All right, hope we're live right now. Uh, Man, I messed up. All right, hey everybody, how you doing out there in Radio Land? If you want to give me a call, all you got to do is dial 720-722-76. Yeah, I had all this headset stuff on. I have two headsets, and I forgot to switch right before the radio show, so my bad. All right. Also, if you want, you can contact me via email. You can email me at info@carm.org, info@carm.org, and you can give me a question on let's see, whatever question. Sorry, I'm reading something. An email came in. I'm trying to make sense of it. Uh, And so you can contact me with a comment or a question. If you don't feel comfortable getting on the air, that's fine. You can have something and then say for the radio show, and then I often read them on the air and go through and answer them. Now, we just had a couple of callers hanging in there, and it looks like the phones are wigging out. So I'm not sure what's going on. Uh, so we'll see. They're kind of coming in and out. Sometimes it does happen. We do have a little bit of an issue every now and then. We'll just see what happens. And okay, let's see. I'm going to get to while we're working on that, they're working on that. I'm going to get to the questions. Is it sinful to wear anything with a South Korean flag, given the pagan origins and symbolism of the flag? We have to be careful of what's called the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is the idea that something was bad originally, so therefore everything out of it is bad. So it's an example of a fallacy like that would be an atheist taught me how to do algebra, therefore algebra is bad. That's called the genetic fallacy, the source. Well, if you have the Korean flag, you're not wearing it for the purpose of symbolizing anything pagan. You're just, hey, it's a Korean flag. It's all you know. And so I wouldn't say it's sinful. If you're aware of something like that and you don't want to because you're not sure, the Bible says whatever is not of faith is sin. So, yeah, let's see. Okay, there we go. We're having a little bit of a phone problem. People, two calls have come in 3 times, and then they kind of bail, and they're asking where I am in the stack, and I am there. So we're just going to work through some tech problems, I guess. So that's it. That's called the genetic fallacy. It's not a sin to do it automatically. But if you think it might be a bad representation of something, then you shouldn't do it. If it's not something you can do with a good and clear conscience, then you wouldn't want to do that. All right, let's see. Someone wrote, I've watched a few Matt Slick debates. It frustrates me to watch him repeat the words, no, you're the one who has faith. Then when someone shows the evidence, he just laughs at it. What? See, this doesn't make any sense. No, you're the one who has faith. What's the context? And yeah, people do have faith. So I don't understand. Frustrated to watch me say, no, you have faith. That's frustrating him. And then when someone shows the evidence, what evidence? Evidence for what? He just laughs at it. No, I don't laugh at it. I'm curious what this person, Cameron, is trying to say, because it's not making any sense. So I don't know if he's hearing the show, if he wants to try and call. He says, there's a way I can have a discussion with this man. I have a political podcast, but if we could take 15 minutes without recording it, I'm fine with that. I just believe his way of thinking is poisoning humanity's intellection. That's awesome. I believe this. I just believe his way of thinking is poisoning humanity's intellection and is an attack on science education. That's awesome. Oh, man, I love that kind of stuff. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to do this right now. I'm on Clubhouse tonight. Tonight at 9 p.m. EST. Look for the name Matt Slick. Let's see if he can come in and do that. Anyway, yeah. When someone, look, I could tell you, it's important. Don't assume that people understand what it is you're thinking. You have to communicate properly, and you really should make sure that you're clear, because otherwise it's like, what? Then I'll get back at you. I'll read it over the radio. I'll say, what is this? Stuff like that. Okay. Whew. All right. Let's get on the phones here. Let's get to John from Winston-Salem. John, welcome. You're on the air. You there? Uh-oh. Not sure if he's hearing. I'm not connected, huh? Oh. There we go. Now can you hear me, John? Are you there? Well, John.
Oh, yes, sir. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. You know what? I messed up today. I didn't do a sound check. Okay. I broke up my system. I messed up. So anyway, sorry about that, guys. They didn't mess up. I did. All right. So John, man, what do you got, buddy?
Hey, I was wondering if you could just speak into your apologetic method. I'm a big fan of Cornelius Van Til's presuppositional apologetic method, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on him and just the way he goes about defending his faith.
Well, sure. Before I tell you, I'll just brag and say that, have you ever heard of John Frame? Have you heard of him?
I have, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, he was my professor and in seminary. And so I got to sit under John Frame, who was the handpicked successor from Cornelius Van Til. How about that? That's a bit of a shameless brag, but so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think so. I really was blessed. Let's see. So what I do, I'm definitely a presuppositionalist, okay, and I use a lot of logic and I use evidence as well. But I believe that evidence and logic are all under the purview of God's sovereignty. Now, presuppositionalism is the best way to go because you have to presuppose certain values in certain contexts in order to have rationality and/or evidential examination. So, coincidentally, I started working on a text for a video series I want to do on how to do apologetics, and everybody has different ways, because our brains are different. But I tell people basic stuff. I am going to change the order. I'm going to go presuppositionally, but you must presuppose the truth of the Christian Trinitarian worldview, and you must just do that because Trinitarianism is unique. So people need to presuppose that, and they need to understand a Christian theology. They have to understand what Christianity is. Otherwise, they're going to be making mistakes in this defense. And so I tell people, I say, look, logically speaking, we should not believe anything that's incoherent, right? So, for example, we should reject such statements as there are no absolute truths. Well, that statement's an absolute truth, refutes itself. So we should reject things that are self-refuting and incoherent. So just basic stuff like that. And then the three things I tell people all the time is define your terms. And then number two is use terms and statements. And then number three, use scripture and logic to validate or invalidate the statements. And so that's the thing I tell people a lot. And if you do those two things, presuppose a Christian truth and you define terms, etc., about 80% of the problems that you'll face evaporate. And for those that are retained, I recommend that people ask questions to find out what a person's particular worldview parameters are. Because anything that's not Christian is going to have incoherence within it. It's a matter of discovering where they're at and then learning how to take the pry bar of scriptural truth and logic into the cracks of their theology or worldview and then pry it apart. And I tell people you don't need to always refute everything. You can hang them with the rope of their own position. So sometimes I'll be talking to somebody and they'll give me something. I'll say, okay, let's work with that. Let's take your position and let's see what it leads to. And I'll do that a lot. So I got a lot more I could say, but stuff like that. Does that help?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that helps out a lot. One thing I did want to clarify when it comes to just my approach to this apologetic method in particular, when I look at Van Til, I see, and I want to make sure my categories are correct when it comes to the preconditions of intelligibility. Currently, I work off of logic, morality, nature, and arithmetic. Would you categorize those differently, or would you include any others in there?
What do you mean by logic? In what context? Logic, morality. What was it?
Yeah, nature and arithmetic being the natural preconditions that necessitate a creator God, essentially.
Well, logic is wait, those are the preconditions? No, God's the preconditions of those things.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Is those those elements inform there being a creator God, because we can't have an understanding of logic, morality, arithmetic, or nature without God necessitating those things.
Right. If you understand the Christian worldview, and I assume you do, that before God created anything, nothing existed except himself. So nothing is what
Right.
rocks think of, and there's just nothing out there. God was the only extant anything who eternally existed in a Trinitarian perichoretic relationship with the three persons. And then logic is not something he created. That's a lot of people don't realize that, because nature is what's created.
Right.
But logic is not, because logic is an emanation of the pure mind of God. And morality is not a creation of God either. It's a revelation of his character. Mathematics emanates out of the issue of logic that is God has integrated into the physical world. And so those are preconditioned by his essence and his ubiquitous essence. And I'm not sure if you're, well, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, I got a sneeze coming up. Hold on. Wow. Oh, man, that came out of nowhere. Sorry about that. I used my cough message.
God bless you.
Thanks. And now I lost my train of thought. Morality, why math works, because it's an issue of logic, ubiquity. Oh, yes. Are you familiar with the issue of the one and the many, particulars and universals?
Yes, somewhat, but if you don't
Okay.
mind just clarifying, make sure I'm on the same page with you on this.
Yeah, the one and the many. What's the ultimate nature of the universe? Is it one thing or is it many things? Is it one substance or is it many particular substances? If it's one thing, then how do we have distinctions if everything is ultimately of one thing? If there are no distinctions, that can be justified because of one idea, that's called monism, then you can't have truth values, because truth values works inside of distinctions and context. All right. So if everything is many, that there's many particulars, well, then you have another problem of coherence, because you don't have an overarching unification of the principles of those particular manifestations of things. So a particular tree over here, a particular tree over there. If each particular manifestation of something is its own ultimate, then how do you have unity between the objects? Are you imposing a unity? Are you coming into? So there's problems there, and this is a problem that's been existing in philosophy for 2,500 years. Well, with the Trinitarian nature, one and many is equally ultimate, because God is one and three. He is one and many. So we presuppose the ultimacy of God's nature in the one and the many, and the problem of the one and the many in philosophy disappears. Okay.
Yes.
So that's
great.
Yeah, there's stuff like that, and I've got a lot of information on that. But and so yeah, these are things. So anyway, logic is necessary preconditions, because logic deals with what's called universals, and you're familiar with those. Are you?
I am. Yes, sir.
Okay. As are morality. And I like to trap atheists. I'll say, are statements true or false? Because that's a law of excluded middle. And they'll say, well, yeah. And then I offer a universal moral absolute statement, and it traps them up. We got a break. So hold on. I'll tell you what that is after the break. And then we'll get to so-and-so from North Carolina, women pastors. My favorite topics is women pastors. Hey, folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Please stay tuned.